Hi, I'm John Frehse, and I'm here with Dave Gilbertson, and we're here for another episode of No Suits, No Slides. So Dave, tell me what's going on in the labor market.
Well, John, from up here in our ivory tower.
Exactly. These stools
No,
do go up. It's so good.
John, this is No Suits, No Slides.
I'm going to lower your chair.
No, we're not doing that.
I'm lowering the
chair. I am
chair.
not Tom Cruise.
Well, for several reasons you are, and for several reasons you're not.
All right. We don't do anything formal here on No Suits, No Slides. So that was a little formal kind of.
I was trying to do my radio voice.
I'm offended.
I can't do my TV face, so I do my radio voice. No suits, no slides.
John, you've got the perfect face for radio.
Thank you. I think that joke's been overused.
It has, but you know what? I'll still come back to the well.
It still applies.
All right, let's corral this. Let's get our poop in a group here.
What's going on?
What's going on in the labor market? Well, what's going on in the labor market right now is we have been talking for 7 straight months, and I think it's now going to be 8 straight months about effectively a Goldilocks labor market, right? Not too fast, not too slow, but it's just right. We've seen very slight declines in workforce activity pretty much every month, with one exception where there was a slight increase in June. Every other month, really since February, has been just a slight degradation. Usually that's not a great sign, but in this case, that's leading to kind of this soft landing that you hear about all the time. Not every industry is being impacted equally. There's some industries, manufacturing has actually done quite well. Retail is starting to struggle. Interestingly enough, we've had 2 straight years of every single month healthcare. Workforce activity in healthcare has been down and just a slog. In the last couple months, we've seen a couple green shoots of maybe we're starting to see a leveling out, which would be, I think, a fantastic sign for the labor market.
I like how you're using spring metaphors in the fall.
Yeah,
spring
absolutely.
Shoots.
I'm trying to go in with as many metaphors as possible.
Good. You're a farmer.
So why don't you give us another one? I talked about Goldilocks. Who are you going to talk about?
I would like to talk about Pollyanna. So,
John, if there's one thing I think about when I look at you, it's Pollyanna.
I thought you were going to say Goldilocks. All right. So as we've talked a lot about problems in the past. The first video we did, we got a ton of views on, and then we got a lot of comments. And the comments were, thanks for telling me the world's ending. What are the solutions?
Yes.
Well, one of the solutions out there has been to hit your culture head on with the facts, to understand what's going on, to do the research, not shy away from the problems. And unfortunately, we've got a large group of leaders out there that are just not prepared to do that.
Yep.
They live in a world of Pollyanna. And the Pollyanna effect is when you say that everything is wonderful, there's no problems, everybody's perfect, your employees lose complete confidence and they know nothing's perfect and we have major problems. And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing in a wide range of places, but communication from leaders has been sanitized. They're afraid to talk about the problems, continuous improvement. And because of that, employees have lost faith.
Yeah.
It's not credible.
No, it's
the story's
not.
not credible.
It's absolutely not.
You surround yourself with awards.
Yeah.
And the employee's like, I don't know about you, but I actually work here.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
It's putting, I think, the healthcare market at risk as well, because you can get some really tough arm challenges and maybe even a broken arm if you pat yourself on the back too hard.
Exactly. I would say I have a rotator cuff issue from that.
I've got back problems just from carrying this team. So
yeah,
what are you going to do?
Carrying your ego, I thought, is what we're talking about. So, you and I we've done in the last year, and it's been fun to get back up on stage and do some big audience work. And we were at one in Florida, I think Amelia Island.
I'll never forget this one.
And it was great because we had just finished our part and we were patting ourselves on the back.
100%.
Home run. What happened?
It was probably 200 people in the audience, and they were mostly C-level executives in the healthcare space. And man, we had nailed it. Right? This was like a 5-star resort, and again, sitting in our ivory tower.
We were glowing.
Looking out across the audience and saying, man, we're good.
We were good.
And then the Q&A came.
I hate the Q&A. I never want any feedback.
I love it because it keeps us on our toes, and boy, did this guy take us to task and keep us on our toes. So he gets up and said, you guys may be right on the data, but some of what you're doing is absolutely killing my business.
Yes.
He's running a skilled nursing facility And what he wanted to talk to us about was surveys.
Corporate surveys.
Absolutely.
And he was the
killing
president.
My business.
He was the president
of the company, and absolutely killing my business. We did this survey that came back saying things were kind of okay, not great, and we did absolutely nothing with it because we looked around, patted ourselves on the back, and said, you know what? There's really nothing to see here.
Nothing to see. And actually, they got an award or a badge, and we'll keep the survey out of this of who it was, but they got recognized as one of the stellar, terrific, great, perfect, wonderful, best. And he said the problem is we got the badge, but we treat our employees terribly.
Right.
And they never know where they're coming or going. We don't give them fixed schedules, and there's no predictability for them. But we were certified through the survey process. So our CEO said, listen, I got 100 things on the list to do. I think it was number 2 on the list was we're going to upgrade all of our workforce management and HCM technology, and we're going to do better for the workforce.
Yep.
But he got the results back, and he said, looks like we don't have to do that one anymore because we're already great.
Right.
And so he checked the box and said, next year, let's look at it again, and let's go on to capital projects. We're going to build another building. We're going to upgrade some facilities. And this president said the CEO used this as, I think he called it a validation tool.
That's right.
And as the president of the company, his job was really more like a COO. He was concerned about continuous improvement. How do I drive things forward? And this actually hurt him.
It did. It absolutely did. And in talking to him privately later, his kind of private thinking was, if we open that facility, how on earth do you think we're going to attract people to work there?
Yeah.
Right? If this is how we're looking at it. And today, a part of the labor market that's been ongoing now for a while is there are, as of last month, 10 million jobs available out there, 6 million unemployed. Right? So,
sounds like we have
I wasn't a math
major,
but and this is the first time, at least in the last 20 years, where we had more jobs available than there were people to take them, was just before the pandemic.
Yep. Before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, 2018, 2019, that was the first time in the last 20 years where that was the case. And that was about 1 million more jobs than there were people to take them. Now we're at 4 million, and that's down from 5 million more jobs than there are people to take them. If you are an executive out there struggling to recruit, struggling to retain your employees, you would naturally think that, boy, my response to that data is to say, I'm going to treat my people so well that they are never going to want to leave.
But I'm not going to say, and this is so important because, again, you surround yourself with the trophies and none of your employees believe in it. You're not going to say, hey, there's nothing to see here, keep walking.
Yeah.
We had, and this is a stat that you shared with me last year, is 47 million people quit their jobs in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that they were, I did a little back of the envelope math, if you think that they were out of work, let's say for 3 weeks, right, job hopping, right, that takes over 3 million people out of the workforce right off the bat.
Right.
So this job hopping kills the supply because 3 weeks combined by this amount of, this is one of the big problems. And so instead of validating our cultures, and this is a plea for everybody watching, stop trying to validate. Your employees already know what's going on. It's really time to look at what's wrong and hit it head on. And what happens when you do that is your employees get very engaged. There's no secrets here.
That's right.
They already know what the problem is. They're waiting for you to get to where they already are.
Yep. The front line knows.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're standing up and saying, this was the survey, this is what it said, boy, am I proud of how good you're telling me I'm doing. Right?
Yes.
And they're sitting there thinking, you know what? Either I was scared to answer the survey honestly, or I knew that if I did answer it honestly, you weren't going to do anything about it. All of a sudden, you've lost even more credibility than if you hadn't done the survey to begin with. So how do you solve this? What's the solution?
Well, I think there's a couple things. Number one is if you're giving them a survey, let's make sure it's not about you and it's about them.
Yeah.
What's going on with them, right? Because there's a lot of, there's internal corporate surveys. We've got a lot of clients that do them.
Sure.
Where I've looked at the questions and it has nothing to do with the workforce.
Right.
It has everything to do with the leadership team. And you're basically assessing the leaders, which is an important exercise.
Sure. Yeah.
But it doesn't get to where the other problems are.
Yeah.
So one is let's make it about them. Number two is we have to be able to segment groups of questions to say, is this about comp and benefits? Is this about decision rights? Is it about a path to improving my career, learning and development? Where are the problems? And you have to be able to do the segmentation. It doesn't help to say, at my company, these are the three problems. What matters is in this subsection, this age group, in this
Right.
geographic location,
Right.
responding to this leader.
Yep.
If we don't do that segmentation, we don't get there. And one thing I want to add to this challenge is that if you're winning and getting the badge or the trophy or whatever hardware they're going to send you for whatever you quote unquote won, what is the criteria for winning?
Yeah.
On most of these, you don't have to even be in the top half of performers
Right.
to get the badge
Right.
or the stamp or whatever
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
You could be in the 40th percentile and be terrific.
Yeah.
So
Reinforcing it's not just about the badge.
no, it's not. And you
So
want to stop at that.
One of the points you mentioned I think was really interesting is the segmentation, right? I think there's some really innovative companies out there that are now segmenting their employees in ways that they never have before. And if you do the survey right and you're actually getting to the right level of concerns at the employee level, all of a sudden your diversity, equity, and inclusion stats go through the roof because your understanding of where you're diverse, where you're not diverse, how you're being perceived as being inclusive versus being exclusive, those are things you could never come up with on your own. And yet every frontline employee, they know, right? They absolutely know. And so to support your DE&I initiatives, this is a huge tool that can really be used for a lot of good out there.
And I was sitting with the executive leadership team of a manufacturing company in a overwhelmingly white part of the country.
Yep.
And incredible team, believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's incredibly hard for them to achieve that where they are. There's just not a lot of diversity.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
There's a Hispanic population, and that's well represented in their company. Very little African American population.
Okay.
And we went through the survey results, and the African American population was very negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to the CEO, we found this to be interesting. Look at how negative the results were. And he looked at me very seriously, and he said, my concern isn't that the results are negative. My concern is that out of a company of 5,000 people, we have 12 African Americans.
Yeah.
There's just no representation.
That's right. Yeah.
And we have to do better.
We have to do better.
And I thought that was interesting. But again, we sometimes learn that, because it's all young people complaining. Well, the people that are 18 to 24, it turns out on this particular survey, have an incredible experience here. 25 to 29, not so much.
Yeah.
That's where they're like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be CEO already.
Right.
I'm 25. Okay, it's a quarter century.
Yeah.
And this is a problem for me. But what's interesting is not the 18 to 24.
Yeah.
You get in there, and but 60 to 65 is a big problem too at this place.
Very
So I was
big.
like, okay.
But so I challenge that perspective that the 25 to 29 are a big problem, because you hear that a lot. That
only in this environment, though. This is a specific client.
But you do hear a lot of other companies and other executives complain about this. That the young group, they're entitled. They're expecting a new job title every 6 months. They're expecting us to give them the world. What I found, honestly, is that they have much higher expectations for the work that your company does in the community. They have much higher expectations for wanting to be proud of the company that they work for. They have higher expectations for the culture that they're a part of and helping to shape. Their higher expectations on inclusiveness. All of those things are going to allow you to retain employees longer and stop this job hopping that's going on. You'd mentioned that 47 million people quit their job last year. That's on track to be 52 million this year.
Is it really?
Right? So it's right on the glide path that we were on for the last decade and a half. Has been just an uninterrupted, interrupted once in 2020.
There was one
right?
blip.
But it's been a continuous march up in terms of the amount of turnover. Listening to those employees is a way to stop that.
But not to validate.
That's right.
You have to really listen to them.
You really have to listen.
I like there's a difference between listen and listen. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, what were you just saying?
Fake listen? Thank you. Appreciate it. But I think that's an important story. And we talked about the job hopping. We talked about the Pollyanna effect here. One thing that I got, I think it was right at the time, and now it's changed, is I said 68 trillion is going to go from boomers to their children. And we're so concerned about millennials, a little off topic. We're so concerned about the economic well-being of millennials. They are going to inherit 68 trillion, and the Wall Street Journal actually told me that I was wrong. It's 71 trillion. It's gone up 3 trillion in the last year.
Right.
And you look at a culture where we're trying to validate instead of improve, and those employees are saying, I want to do, this is just to summarize what you said, meaningful work at a meaningful company.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you're not doing that, they can go, what is it? It's 1.6 for every one person seeking
1.5
work.
now. Yeah,
1.5
Yep.
Jobs for every one person seeking work. So when we look at those numbers and the fact that mom and dad have a bunch of money, generally speaking, we know there's poverty out there. We know that this is not spread smoothly. I can job hop and I can live with my parents and I will live a great life there. And the quality of life I'm getting at home, not getting married, not having kids,
Yep.
not going to church, or, all of those things.
Yeah, less of a connection to the community.
And lots of freedom.
Sure.
That changes everything. And it really, I think it's the brave leaders that charge headfirst into this that are the ones that are loved by their workforce.
Yeah.
It's not all going well. We
right.
have problems and we're going to solve them together. And you have to follow through.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been another pleasure. Always an interesting
I
conversation.
don't know if it was a pleasure this time, was it? I loved it.
It was for me, but you do you, John.
I've rarely been told that, so thank you so much. Most people say don't do you. But again, Dave Gilbertson from UKG, John Frehse from Ankara, thank you for attending another No Suits, No Slides.